Okay, that's a big one. Oh boy, oh boy. So Ableton just lifted the embargo and we can now freely talk about the fact that Ableton 12 is coming up. Let's dive in. So this video will be a quick overview on some of the most exciting new features, and of course we're going to roll out even more videos on everything new in Ableton 12 on this channel in the future. So make sure to subscribe because there's going to be a lot to talk about. Let's start by stating the obvious. It looks nicer. UI and feel has improved in my opinion, which is what I like to see in a rather significant update like this. It's a sleeker UI, easy on the eyes, well done. And one of the first new things we can see here in the top bar is we now have a global scale and also scale awareness. That's what Ableton calls it. So choosing scales and making Ableton globally adhere to them is now way easier. Also new are more view options. So no more need to switch between device and clip view, as you can have everything always in focus on one screen. Let me quickly show you how this works. You can enable these options by clicking Command, Option, and 3, and also Command, Option, and 4. So any combination is possible. Let me switch back to my original view real quick. And one thing you might have already seen on the left side, we now have a completely overhauled browser, which now supports a tagging system. So you have all these categories here, like content, sounds, devices, the functions, formats, even tunings, vendors, and so on. And you can filter them by using tags. But the more exciting part about this, for me personally, is of course that you can use your own tags now. So I've gone ahead and tagged already a lot of my samples. You can do this by clicking this edit button right here. And then you are presented with all these different subcategories. And you can just tick them if you want to. And you can also, of course, create your own. So what's a typical scenario in your workflow? In mine, it will be maybe I need a hi-hat loop. Nothing easier than that. I just click on this loop tag here, then I hold down Command and choose whichever drum category I want. In my case, hi-hats, and boom, there are all my hi-hat loops. Super time-saving feature indeed. I like this much more than using the favorites on the left side because you just have way more control. And speaking of more control, one of the main things I'm really excited about in Ableton 12, we finally have a mixer in the arrangement view. Ta-da! This is something I've been asking for ages now, and here it is. The workflow with the volumes and return tracks on the right side was always a bit clunky for me, and I'm really happy they added this feature. And not only that, you can have the same all-in-one view here as well, just by engaging the different elements with the keyboard shortcuts or right here in the bottom corner. So clip view, device view, and mixer view, everything is possible, and every combination as well. And to take things even further, you can get rid of the browser in arrangement view altogether if you want to. Let's switch to the session view, and you can see Ableton will remember the state of your session and arrangement view independently of each other. So every time you switch, you have the layout you want. And now let's get into even more new stuff regarding MIDI clips and piano roll. Let me quickly engage the MIDI clip view, and you can already see there's a bunch of new stuff here. So on the left side, we have our, I would say, global settings for the MIDI clip. There are new functions in there like humanize, and also the stretch function, which is very handy to have. Moving on, we have an arpeggiator. So you don't have to load the dedicated arpeggio device anymore. You can just use this one, and then the arpeggiator will populate your clip with the respective notes, which again gives you way more control over your arpeggio. And before I move on to this third part here, where we're gonna spend a little bit more time, you can see that not only has the layout slightly changed, we can see that the envelope, notes, and MPE functions are in the middle above the clip now. But we also have some brand new ways to interact with MIDI clips and generate notes. So that's what this section here is for. And let me put some headphones on for this. So Ableton integrated a new smart way to interact with clips and also populate them. So for now, I'm going to show you a quick example of what you can do with the seed shape and stacks features. And we're going to dive even more into the new smart features in upcoming videos. Let's start with seed. And seed does exactly what it says on the tin. It will generate notes for you. And of course, you can have influence over how these notes will be populated. So let me quickly disengage this generate knob here. So you can, first of all, choose a pitch range. Let's say I want my pitch range to be from C2 to D6. Then you can choose the duration of notes. I'm going to go from 1/16 is fine to 1/8. And the velocity, of course, as well. I'm going to leave it like it is. You can choose your number of voices up to 16. I'm going to leave it at 1 for now. And then density controls how many notes Ableton will draw into the clip. Let's say I want like 80% and click generate. There we go. This is our first pattern, and it will, of course, adhere to the scale you've chosen here. If you are not happy with your scale, you can choose it afterwards, and you can see the notes are changing as well. And let's see how that sounds. And if you're not happy with your clip, you can just hit this little arrow right here. Very inspirational tool in my opinion, I quite like it. Moving on to the next MIDI feature, which is called Shape. So you have all these preset shapes provided by Ableton, flat, down, up and down, arc up, and so on. But as always, the real fun begins when you are starting from scratch and creating your own shapes, which you can do here in this window. And you can see everything responds in the clip as well. Let's say I want to start a little bit more at the bottom, like G1, and then move my way up with some variations over here. Let's listen to this. Then we can tie some of our notes. These are probability factors. And introduce some jitter. And finally, we have stacks, which is for all you people out there who work with chords. I'm not a big chord guy myself, but let me quickly show you what it can do. So let's maybe add 4 different chords, and then you can choose different algorithms here. And again, it will adhere to the scale. You can choose a different root note. You can invert your chords. You can choose an offset and change the duration. Let's have a listen. For people like me who don't really dive that much into music theory and chords, that's a nice feature to have as well. And while we are talking about smart features, the workflow creating drums also had a major update in Ableton 12, because now Ableton will scan your sample library and suggest similar sounds, which they call Similarity search. I created a kit using only my own samples here, and if I don't like the kick anymore, for example, I can just press one of these arrows down here, and Ableton will switch the sample out for a new one that sounds similar. And of course you can repeat this as much as you like. Let's check some of the other sounds, maybe a tom. And let's listen to the loop. because this also works on a global level now for drum racks, so you can generate completely new kits from scratch with a single click. And yes, this will also work on simpler devices, as you can see here. And of course, you're not only limited to drums, you can also use tonal material like synth or bass one-shots. They also added new devices, of course, and I'm going to single out two of them for this video. They're called Meld and Raw. Let's start with Meld first. So Meld is a dual layer synth that gives you several different oscillator models to choose from, much like the Plaid Zero Rack module, for example, but of course with Ableton's own algos. And I'm gonna skip through a few of them, or maybe even all of them, just so you can hear the vast sonic range these can cover. The architecture of the synth is quite straightforward. We have our envelopes, LFOs, a modulation matrix, MIDI settings, MPE, and then we can switch between oscillator A and B. But they also included quite a few more options on filters than usual for this one. So you can see there's stuff like the filter and a phaser, a redux, vowel filter, comb filter, a plate resonator, and a membrane resonator taken from Corpus, I believe. You have a limiter at the end of the chain. You can choose between poly and mono. You can spread your voices in unison, and you have some delicious drive. So the main star of the show are these two macro dials right here, and they do different things depending on which oscillator models you chose. I'm gonna map them to my MIDI controller here, so it's easier for me to play around with them. And then I'm gonna skip through all the oscillator models so you can hear what they do. And let's add some reverb and delay to it and create a really quick drone. Very nice synth indeed, with lots of options for sound design. And this little arrow here, you know this from synths like Wavetable already. I really like that they included this in a few of the new devices, so it's way easier to work with the modulation matrix on these units. Moving on to the next device, which is a multi-band distortion. It's called Raw. This is what it looks like. I have a simple 909 kit here with a loop, and let's listen to this without Raw engaged. Nothing special, your typical run-of-the-mill 909 loop, but now let's engage Raw. And again, the UI follows the new design language of Ableton 12. It looks really clean and it's very intuitive to navigate as well. You can use the windows now, you don't have to use the dials if you don't want to. So Raw is a multi-band distortion, as mentioned, so you can choose either to run it as a single distortion, serial, in parallel, as multi-band, as we have right here, in mid-side mode, and feedback. So for now, we're gonna stay in this multi-band mode, and I'm gonna punch up my drums a little bit. And as you can see, we have two LFOs to work with. We have an envelope follower, we have a noise section, and of course the modulation matrix on the right side as well. So as this is just a quick rundown on Ableton 12 and the new features, we're not gonna have a deep dive on the new devices, but we're gonna take a look at those units in more detail soon in separate videos. And by the way, I really like the compressor section at the end of the chain here in Raw. This thing is, I think, drum bass on steroids. Some other bits and bobs in the UI that are new. If you are missing the groove pool, fear not, it's still there, no need to worry. You just have to click in the upper left corner and there's your tuning and groove pool. And speaking of tuning, Ableton now supports a lot of scales, so you can use every wheeled scale under the sun and import it into Ableton if you want to. And by supporting scales, of course, I mean supporting Scala files, so you can import them. We also now have a dedicated modulator section here on the left side. If I just put in an LFO. And one of those little improvements that make me really happy is you can now choose to modulate a parameter. Let's quickly choose the low amount here. And don't have the modulation source take over your destination. So you can still move the knob and it will offset the modulation, but it's not locked anymore. And another nice thing regarding clips, whenever you drag a bunch of clips with different lengths into the arrangement view now, Ableton will drop them with the same clip length automatically, using the longest clip as kind of a master length. So it's way easier to have loops in your session view translate to the arrangement view. Let me show you how this works. So I have this backing noise here. As you can see, it's huge. Let's mark all of them, copy them over, and you can see all my clips are the same length now. It automatically created a loop in the arrangement view. So Ableton added a bunch of really nice quality of life features, and overall it also feels more responsive and snappy, I would say. And like I said in the beginning, today we're just scratching the surface really. There's going to be a lot more content from us explaining everything in Ableton 12 in detail, and there are more than 30 pages or something crazy like that of new additions and improvements in the manual. So lots of stuff to cover. Let me know your thoughts about Ableton 12 in the comments below, and I'm gonna see you soon. Take care.